Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of HighSobriety podcast. And today I'm joined by my lovely guest, Lauren White. Hi Lauren, how are you?
I'm good. I don't live here, I live in Bali, and I've been here for 5-6 weeks, and I leave on Monday, so it's like the end of my trip. But it's been an amazing trip, and I'm really excited and happy to be doing things like this whilst I've been in London. So yeah, I feel good.
Well, thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Tell the viewers and listeners a little about yourself. Obviously, like, you're a motivational speaker, you're also an ambassador for Alcohol Change UK. Yeah. Anything else to add to that CV?
Yeah, I work with Amy Winehouse Foundation.
Okay.
I've been working for the Amy Winehouse Foundation since I was 18, actually, when I got sober. Mainly my thing back in the day was going into schools and doing talks. Now it's pretty much just spreading awareness around addiction, mainly young addicts. And I am an addiction counsellor. I work with people that are struggling with addiction and people that are in self-sabotaging behaviours. The reason why I like to say self-sabotage is because when people hear addiction, they're like, whoa, I'm not an addict, not a whiskey drinking a park bench. But actually addiction, the definition of addiction is it's a cycle. Well, they believe it's a brain disease, but it's an illness where if you touch something and you physically cannot stop it with no willpower alone, whether there is negative consequences, that is an addiction. So it's about looking into your life and understanding, like, if there's something I cannot stop and I've tried everything to stop, you need to do something about it. And it's not necessarily just drugs and alcohol, it can be anything.
How was your relationship with alcohol?
Interesting one, because, I had, at the beginning, a loving relationship with alcohol. Alcohol was my best mate for a very long time. I am, how to describe it? I do have family that have had issues with alcohol. I witnessed a sibling going to rehab very young for it, a family member as well going into rehab very young with it. So, I always knew growing up that alcohol was not just a substance, it was almost something that I generally felt could have taken over my life in a way that's like, I always thought to myself, is it genetic or whatever? And I guess at the end of the day, I knew that it could have been a problem in my life. But amazingly enough, 2 of my family members are sober and they've changed their life around, and I'm lucky that I've seen that. But for me, drinking was always a way of trying to avoid my feelings, avoid trauma that I went through in my childhood, the low self-esteem that I had. I do identify myself as, I did like the way that I looked, but I always struggled with fitting in and my self-esteem and where I was going to be in the world. So I always had this fear that I was going to fail, or this fear that I wasn't good enough. And that came from, actually, when I was in my younger school, I got diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. So I was like basically put down from a very young age by my teachers. They were like, you're not going to succeed or whatever. And that affected me really young. So when I drank alcohol very young, like 12, 13, it took away all of it. But it wasn't just alcohol that I started with. The gateway drug, marijuana, then came. And then by 15, 16 years old, I was working in clubs very young. And ecstasy and MDMA was on the scene. And that literally was like my heaven. And I always and it's funny how it correlates with like relationships with men, but an insecurity, I'm going to be really deep here. I grew up having a very deep voice. I still have a very deep voice, and I was a tomboy growing up. I loved football, I loved to play games, I loved to be a bit of a tomboy, hang out with the boys, and I had this incredibly low self-esteem that no guy would like me because I wasn't a girly girl. So when I drank, it took away all that fear that guys weren't going to get with me. And for many years I tried to change myself. So like 15, 16 years old, I was modelling. That really affected me growing up. I developed an eating disorder. I had this idea in my head, the only way that a guy's going to like me was to be stick thin, because in those days it was all about being stick thin. My eating disorder manifests in many ways. So it was like I was bulimic, then I was binging, and then I was restricting, and it was all like hand in hand with the drinking and drugging, because I felt shameful about what was going on in my life.
So it's more like a coping mechanism than
all of it was a
like
coping mechanism.
And stuff.
All of it was a coping mechanism. But it worked for a short amount of time. And it works until it stops working. And then subconsciously what happens is you forget the bad times. And you probably relate to that.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
You know, when you wake up and you're like, I'm never going to do it again. And then you're like, go back to the same old ways. And it was a habit. It became a habit. It became a pattern in my life. And it became times where I really, really couldn't sit with myself. So drinking was my best friend for a very long time. Until it stopped being my best friend and it was a progressive illness.
How did the situation happen? Because you said you started drinking when you was 12. Like, what was the situation surrounding? Obviously, you don't have to go too deep in it, but like, what was the influence for you to go and be so young and to start drinking at that age?
I think, one, I hated my home life because there was a lot going on in my family. Like, my mum had breast cancer when I was 12. That really affected me. And then I hated school life because I just generally thought I was shit at everything. So, you know, I was like a popular girl. I was really cool. Like, people liked me, and you know, you'd go to house parties, and in my case, I was Jewish. You go to bat mitzvahs. It was free-flowing alcohol, and I would drink. And when I drank, it took away all that fear. So I just drank and drank and drank, and I just couldn't not. And this is the addiction. I just couldn't not have one. And I loved the feeling of not feeling. And I remember, like, you know, even when I went out on nights out, I couldn't even get to the club because I was paralytic before even getting there. You know, like, that wasn't a party. You know, that every single time. And I was always the one insinuating alcohol. I was always the one that was like, let's drink, let's do this, let's do that, because I generally, the more I was doing it, the more also the feeling of actually being in reality terrifies you.
Of course.
You know, but it was really kind of like, you know, alcohol was always there. And then obviously, like, I got into the raving scene quite a bit. And like, when I was at university, it was almost every weekend doing it, and festivals, and, you know, MDMA, like, because it made me so lovey.
No,
you know,
it's the best.
It's the best.
You just want to cuddle someone and you feel loved.
Because I was so scared of intimacy growing up, like, because of trauma I'd been through, like, to actually go up to someone and, like, kiss them, hug, it terrified me. But the minute I did drugs and the minute I drank, I can do it to anyone. And that was kind of like how it made me feel.
Which, like, the conscious barriers are all down. Like, it's a bit of a free-for-all. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no sort of, you're not second questioning what you're doing, and it feels right. And I suppose that's where the addiction comes. It's not, maybe not from the drug, but it's the effect of what the drug. Do you know what I mean? It's like that whole, like, euphoria and the environment. You know, I was the same when I used to go to festivals. It was, even some of the best times I had was, you know, it could be outside, the sun's going down, you've just dropped an ecstasy tablet and you're coming up, and it's just like, everything's just perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like utopian world until the next day when you feel like,
oh my God, the come downs are the worst.
You're like, oh no, I should have kissed that person.
No, it's like me, literally. But in that moment in time, you just don't want to worry about life, you know. And I remember even, you know, trying to get out of my own reality. And I had a good childhood. I didn't have a bad childhood. I mean, I had ups and downs in my childhood, but, you know, I wasn't left by myself. You know, I grew up in a big house. I grew up in having house parties all the time. I grew up, you know, in such a, like, you know, I went on holidays. Like, I had all of that stuff, but, you know, there was something inside me that just didn't want to be in reality. And I remember even, like, being 13 years old, and I don't know if you relate to this, but, like, literally being obsessed with like Orange County, being obsessed with 90210, actually like fantasizing that I was these characters. And that's how I describe it. I was even fantasizing being in another life than being in my own. And then obviously when I touched drink and drugs, it was like, I can make my own reality. I can, you know, not actually think about what is going on in my life and the fear, because the fear is what stops us from really, really getting honest. And I was so scared. Like, I don't think I've ever explained this in my podcast, in any of the podcasts that I've been interviewed for, but like, I had a lot of like, where the anxiety around like being successful came, and like, you know, fitting in, and even like with exams and GCSEs, like I was so scared that I was going to fail. I was so scared that I wasn't going to be successful. I was so scared that my future was going to end up so bad that, you know, when I drank, I didn't have to worry about any of that. And that, at that time, was a solution to my problem, you know?
Yeah, I can relate to that, because I think I even now, even being sober, like I apply so much pressure to everything, and like nothing ever feels, I suppose it's feeling content in yourself. And I think I'm still on that journey of finding that content. And you know, some people go out for their whole lives not feeling content with stuff, but yeah, it's just, I just beat myself up so much. And I think that was even in relationships and stuff. Like I said to you earlier, like drugs and alcohol became like my partner, because it was a quick fix. Like instead of having like the deep conversations with a relative or a girlfriend, or do you know what I mean, a mate at work, I didn't want to keep piling on my shit to other people. So the easiest thing for me to do was just to either self-sabotage anything, or it was just for that form of escapism, because I knew what I was going to get, I knew how easy it was to get it, and I knew what the effects were when I took it. Do you know what I mean? And like, and for that moment, it just felt like, like relax, like it's all good, like you know, keep snorting another line, like, keep down another drink, and I don't know, it's just feeling that content, and also that, you know, you need to fucking feel like proud of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like we all do these like little wins and stuff. Like even when I used to do the 1 month sober, 2 months sober. But at the same time, as much as cliche and cheesy as it is, but for me, it was like, another accomplishment, another one. Do you know what I mean? And I think, it's tough. We're very tough on ourselves. And I think that's, for a lot of us who did turn to drink and drugs, that's probably the main reason why we did do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that for sure.
100%. I mean, I've got this tattoo on my arm that says, be kind to myself, because I'd constantly beat myself up on a daily basis with everything. And, you know, like you said, you still do now, you know. We're in a world of comparison, and we're in a world of, you know, expectation in many ways, shapes and forms. And society shapes us in a way that there's like a box that we're in. And that box is the way that we're meant to be, or they think we're meant to be. But actually, like, I keep reminding myself, and I'm not perfect, like, especially as like a counsellor and a coach, I always tell people this, like, I don't have everything figured out. Like, there's good days and the bad days. Like, since I come back to London, like, my cousin died, my friend died, my dog got put down, one of my family members was ill. I've been struggling. I've been really struggling. In that time, I went to House of Parliament for an event, I've done 4 talks, like, all these things. Life is a roller coaster.
Yeah, it is.
It's literally constant ups and downs, but what people don't understand is they look at the bad stuff that's happened.
Of course.
You know, but you can go, and I said this to another podcast recently, but you can go from bad to sad and happy in 10 seconds. And it's what you do with that emotion that matters. But I keep reminding myself on a daily basis that my journey is my journey. And the only way I can truly be happy in my life is if I accept everything in my life the way that it is. And that's the shit things and the good things. Because not everything's going to go my way. Today I got a call from my friend, and I've been doing some work with them, and it sounds so sucky, but they were like, we're not sure we want to work with you anymore. Hurts so much. I think that's part of half of my money I'm making. I can sit here and I can go, oh my God, I'm a shit person. This is what a lot of people do. I'm a shit person. Oh my God, that's it. I'm going to end up poor. I'm not going to do this. I'm in fear. I'm in the future. I don't know what the future holds. All I can do is focus on the now and go, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's life.
I think we're very much amongst that generation that you know, even starting all this, was very new for me, and at the start it didn't feel very organic because I'm not a social media person. I've never been one to take loads of pictures. I'm not one to keep. Do you know what I mean? I'm not keen on like filming dinners and bullshit like that. I just want to tuck into my food. Do you know what I mean? But I do feel social media does have a lot to play with the comparisons because you know I find myself guilty, even like doing the fucking podcast. You compare yourself to other podcasts. You're like, oh, so what are they doing that I'm not doing? And what's this, that, and the other? And I think it's literally finding your own stay in your fucking lane. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just like, enjoy what you're doing, like what you are doing, you're succeeding in, you're helping people, you still got your family, you still got your friends, you still got a roof over your fucking head. Do you know what I mean? I think you've got to take the little wins sometimes and not become so focused on what Tom, Dick and Harry have got. Do you know what I mean? Like, because deep down, as much as, like I say to people, like you might be seeing someone who runs a marathon or climbs a mountain or does these ice baths and stuff like this, but everyone's still, deep down, there's still shit going on in that person's life.
100%. 100%. And I spoke to someone about this today, and I was speaking to, I was in the gym. Sorry, I nearly fell. I was in the gym, and she was like, wow, you live in Bali, that's an amazing life. And I said, look, like, yeah, it's a really cool life, but the grass is always greener. There's always something that I want that I don't have. She's just had a baby. She's, married. I'm single, haven't got a baby. And this is what I mean, the comparison, like, there will always be someone that looks at your life and wants what you have. Of
course.
And then I will always look at someone and go, I want what you have. And that's why it's so important to just enjoy what you have and accept what you have. You may not get everything in life, and that's okay. But it's also about understanding that, like, with or without this fucking bullshit, I swear.
Yeah, no, well, I've been fucking.
Okay, good. Yeah.
See you in.
I was just like, because I can't do it without not swearing.
Don't drop the C-bomb, all right?
No, I'm getting a lot of trouble with that because in Australia they say it all the time. So at home I've been saying it. My whole family are like, "What are you doing?" Anyway. I've lost my train of thought now. But yeah, it's generally like one of those things where, like, you got to do what truly makes you happy. And happiness to me, and I learned this from a very, very young age, because I say this to a lot of people, sorry to out the bullshit, but like from the ages of 11 to the ages of 18, I tried to make my life perfect. I tried to make every single person see me as the most incredible human being known to man. Like the modelling, the clubbing, surrounding myself around celebrities, thinking that I was making a shitload of money, thinking that I was with the coolest people. My whole exterior was like beautiful, immaculate, perfection, because I was a perfectionist. But deep down, I was dying inside. And the reason why I was dying inside was, one, I was putting so much pressure on myself. I was wearing so many masks, putting so much expectation on myself to be a certain way, to look a certain way, to be perfect, that I was self-sabotaging. When I got sober, I remember, and it wasn't actually... So actually, I don't describe this, but when I went into rehab at 18, I went into Harley Street. I did this 4-month intense thing. I came out, and actually it was the first 3 years of my sobriety that I wasn't drinking, but I was still working in clubs. And I was still surrounding myself around celebrities, and I was still surrounding myself around cool people, making myself look amazing. So I dealt with the drugs and alcohol, but I didn't deal with the thing. Then I went back into rehab because I burnt out. And that was when I realised that all of it was fucking bullshit.
It's hard being a social chameleon. It's like, it is, because that's how I am I have to be with my job, because I've got different individuals from different backgrounds, they're from upper class, lower class, they're from different continents of the world, it's different cultures.
Do you sometimes feel that you are giving so much of you?
I do, but I think I very much did so. Like, I've been doing this like 12 years now, but I think as time's gone on, I've learned just to sort of like, it's learning how to prioritise things, but at the same time to be true to yourself. But I do feel like over the years, it's a lot's been taken out of you, and I feel. I know this is getting really deep now, but it's just like, even with the sobriety stuff, I feel like I've wasted a lot of time.
Of course.
And I feel like I said in the video the other day, there's shame, and it's kind of, I don't know, like, it is starting a whole new chapter in your life, but at the same time, like, I don't even know who that person was, and I feel that like even little things with friends, family, like going on a holiday, like there's so much shit that I can't remember, and that's why I feel a bit like a bit of a tipping point at the moment, because I honestly don't know where to go next, and I feel that everything I'm doing at the moment just resembles the old life of mine, whether that's my job, whether that's travelling to London, whether that's the area that I live in. It's all resemblance of like the old life that I had. So yeah, it just that's how I feel at the moment. It just feels like the shackles are off, but I don't know what lane I'm running to. I don't know what road I'm meant to be running up, but I feel that I'm meant to be doing something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I relate, and that's exactly what I was doing when I got sober. I was doing exactly the same thing as what I was doing when I was drinking.
Yeah.
And until I actually sat down, I gave my phone in for a month, honestly. A lot came up for me, a lot of love addiction. I fell in love with 2 guys in rehab, obviously, because I didn't want to deal with my own problems.
Yeah, of course.
One was a schizophrenic, I can't say this, one was a schizophrenic, don't even. But I learned actually who I am and what I wanted, and actually, finally, it took a lot of courage to actually break free from those things that weren't serving me anymore. So I stopped working in clubs. I stopped surrounding, and I went back. I told you, I went back the last 5 years doing pretty similar jobs, and I've had to, like, that's the journey. You go back and forth. You go back and forth. It because the thing is our ego comes in play. Our pride comes in play. Also, you want to be loved, so you go back into, like, even sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, like when I worked in clubs, like, I was needed by these people. Like, I had my identity, and it was fucking cool. And then when I worked in, you know, the gym that I worked at, you know, people would call me up. They'd be like, Lauren, and it was like you said, like with relationships, people needed me, and then that made me feel needed. Yeah. But it wasn't making me happy. So it's one of those things where what I would do is I would take a step back, put pen to paper, write down a few things that you love, and just roll with it. The only way to figure out what you want to do is by exploring. Yeah. And that's why I moved to Hong Kong when I was 21. Yeah. Best thing I ever did. I left London, I went to Hong Kong, I think I had holes in my trainers. I literally didn't know anyone.
Still have, I'm joking.
I'm joking. No, they are broken, to be fair. I'm a bit of a homeless person, to be fair.
Joking.
The best thing I ever did. Yeah. And I went there, and I highly recommend it to everyone. I went there and no one knew me, and I could create a life for myself. So the life that I created there was who Lauren was, not this expectation of working in Abercrombie, working in Hollister, being in the Jewish community, you know, being surrounded by X, Y, Z. Just didn't care about it. Yeah. Just didn't care about it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like where I'm at the moment. I kind of feel like I need to make a bit of a change, and like I said to you earlier, I think whether it's friendships, relationships, work, I always feel like I've got this fucking S on my chest. And it's like, oh, I'll come and save that, and I'll do this, and I can save this, and when I can't, obviously because I beat myself up all the fucking time, you're then deemed as a failure. You are then deemed as, well, you couldn't do that, well, you can't do that, well, obviously you're not good enough to do this, oh, you're making mistakes at work, that means you're really shit at your job, do you know what I mean? But I think that's all to do with your mindset. I think if you're in an environment where you don't want to be, I think you're continuously going to be challenging yourself and questioning stuff because it doesn't feel like a natural flow. I think if you take yourself out there and put yourself in environments that you feel comfortable in, I don't think you have the necessity to overachieve, do you know what I mean? Like beat yourself up. Do you see what I mean?
No, I get it. I mean, that's why I do live in Bali, because in Bali, I'm not saying this will be my forever, but it's the simple things. Yeah. It's like I go outside my villa and there are literally Indonesian people on the floor, not the floor, on the street. Yeah. And you look at it and you're like, oh my God, like, I don't actually need to be making shitload of money. I just need to, you know, be happy and content. And the simple things, like what makes me happy. So what makes me happy is nature. Yeah. That's my like higher power. Like, you know, go to the beach, go for a run, being outdoors, connecting with people. I lost all of that in addiction. I lost all of that when I was using in many ways, shapes or form, and I was running away from it. So, you know, but these things are free. You know, but
did you find, sorry to interrupt, did you find yourself when you was taking drugs and drinking and stuff like that I hold my hands up and say that I was this person, I would look at those people like fucking idiots. Like, what the fuck are you staring at the sun? Like, why are you going to the gym? Why are you fucking doing this? Like, what's wrong with you? You're weird. Like, why are you not coming for a drink? Do you know what I mean? It was like, that's how I used to be like when I was drinking and stuff. But deep down I was like, you are doing a better thing than me.
Yeah, but to be fair, I was always into the gym from a very young age. I mean, I was always into athletics. My dad got me into athletics, but I did look down on people a lot. Like, you know, if that person, you know, I used to be hosting tables, and if someone comes up to me and asks for a drink, I'd be like, fuck off, who are you? Like, I had so much ego, you know, and I was a bully at one period in my life at school. Like, I hate talking about it, but I look back and reflect, because when I was a bully, I was in a bad place. And most of the time when someone bullies you, it's because they're not in a good place. And I used to bully people. Like, I never hit anyone, but I was rude and I was like a bitch. You know, I was like, I look back and I'm like, I would never be that person now. You know, but that was a reflection of how I felt about myself. And that was because I was hurting, especially when I was drinking and doing drugs and I was fucking bulimic. You know, why would I love anyone else if I couldn't love myself?
Exactly. That's what they say in RuPaul, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good saying, I'm not going to lie.
What advice would you give for anyone that is looking to go sober or is in their early stages, maybe doing the dry Jan, and they want to sort of long it out, you know? What would you suggest to people to do, who to see, speak to, watch, listen to?
First things first, I would always say, first step is admitting you have a problem. Like, that's the first thing. I would out myself, whether it's a close friend, whether it's someone that I can trust. Secrets keep us sick. I wrote this in the article, actually. Nice. Secrets keep us sick. And there's no shame. There's no shame in saying you have a problem, saying there's an issue. I mean, I even now, still nearly 11 years sober, say when there's an issue in my life, you know, just because I don't drink doesn't mean I don't have problems.
No, of course.
Then I would look at triggers. So I would look at, you know, my, they say habit cues, like where in my life I'm more likely going to drink and do drugs, and try and avoid those places for the time being. Look at your friendship circle environments. The hardest thing for me was actually realizing that I needed to take a step back from people that were doing what I was doing, unfortunately. You know, 11 years later, I can put myself in those situations, but I'm very wary. And then I would try and repurpose myself and try and find a new purpose in my life. So whether that's fitness, nutrition, a course, something that you can focus yourself on. And then I would have accountability for the time being. So like, you know, it does take a long time to break a habit or stop an addiction, but like if you can focus on the 1% change and look at kind of like every day, kind of, okay, today I'm sober, like have a tracker on your phone, it will really, really help. Relapse is inevitable. I talk about that a lot. Nothing wrong with relapse. I don't highly encourage relapse, but I say that setbacks always happen. And you know, when we talk about shame and guilt, that will put you back in. So actually, when you do relapse, if you do relapse, accept it, is what it is, and go back to day one. Because if you beat yourself up about it, you're just going to go back into the addiction. And then look at your life and don't see it as like the next 7 days, you know, especially with dry Jan, see it as like a lifelong journey. Like I have this thing on my phone that really helps me, and I have like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and every day that I'm sober. And then I look at the grand scheme of things, 6 months, you know, out of, I mean, I don't do it for drugs and alcohol because I've never relapsed, but I do it with food because I have the occasional binges, and I do track that. Like out of 6 months, I've had like 5 binges. But in that moment, you're like, fuck, you know?
I've ruined it.
That's it, and you beat yourself up. But actually, you look at the bigger picture and look at how far you've come rather than how long you've got to go. Okay. So those are my tips.
For a motivational speaker as well, what motivates you?
What motivates me is inspiring people. I generally think that is my purpose in life. Everyone has a different purpose in life, but my purpose is if I can help one person, I'm helping myself. That motivates me daily. The hardest thing is sometimes that doesn't necessarily make money, and I'm not money orientated. I wish I was,
Yeah.
so I got holes in my shoes.
No.
I'm really not money, I've never been money orientated.
Yeah.
Maybe in my addiction I was actually, like, I grew up having money and it didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
I like the finer things in life, but it's not a necessity. So, you know, if someone reaches out to me, like, I'll be on the phone to them in a second. I don't expect anything in return. And it's when you can kind of look at it and go, I've nearly changed someone's life today.
Yeah.
That's what motivates me and drives me. And hopefully one day I'll get paid for it. I mean, I do kind of get paid for it, but you know what I mean? Like in the day-to-day, like, you know, I just had a client of mine call and like, it's not a client call. And he's like, I need to speak to you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, of course, like, look, like even when I work with my clients, there are some counsellors that like they have their hour and that's it. Like no, with my clients,
cut off,
with my clients, I'm like, you call me, you message me when you're struggling. Like I'm here for you, and that's when they realise that they can actually reach out to me, and I'm not just a random person that's just like, hey, bye. There's a different way of working with people, but for me, it's like I'm your friend. Well, not I'm your friend, but like you can lean on to me, and I think that's so important.
Nice, that's good.
But also, don't do what you did, which is try and fix people.
No,
Can't fix anyone.
I think that is one of my things that I need to change this year. That I need to stop doing that. And also, just to finish this interview up, what is your zero hero in terms of like what's your preferred 0% alcoholic drink? If you like that.
Yeah, I mean, over lockdown, I got a bit too obsessed because everyone was drinking and doing drugs, so I was like, I need something. I do like the Heineken 0.0.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's one. And Lucky Saint.
Lucky Saint's the one.
Yeah.
I think out of all of them, that is the one that I would like sort of go to most of the time, because most of it just tastes like piss water anyway.
I know.
Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
It was really, really nice having a conversation with you and learning a bit more about you and what you do. But yeah, that was episode 4. Like, share, follow, and I'll see you soon.
Stay sober.